Alrighty, cool. Okay, what is up, James? How you doing today?
I'm doing wonderful, man. It was a long day, but a good one. And I'm excited to
Yes,
be here, brother.
dude, a long one. Yeah, it just came off of a demo. You've been crushing it. But
Yeah.
Cyft, man, you got to tell me about it. So, welcome, first of all, welcome to the show. And we talk about founders and builders that are currently at the cutting edge of technology, really impacting their worlds and even in their niches that they have built. So, tell me a little bit about yourself and tell me a little bit about Cyft,
Wow. A little about myself. I'll give you the long version
please.
another time, but I'll give you the short version today.
Okay, okay.
Um, I was born and raised in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Was a high school football player. Had about 42 D1 offers coming out of high school.
Crazy.
So I thought I was going to the NFL. Clearly didn't work out. But then I picked up music. I had always made music my whole life. So
Cool.
I eventually moved to LA and then to New York, signed a record deal, and had this like whole second life. And then I got burnt out
Mm.
and wanted to do something completely different. And in school, I majored in finance and I loved sales. I've been doing small businesses and entrepreneurial things since I was a little kid. And so I wanted to get into sales, see if I really had the chops to do it
Right.
in the big leagues. So I joined this company called Arctic Wolf, and that is where I first got introduced to managed service providers. Did a pretty good job there, and went to another company called AdLumen, and it was there where I really got involved with MSPs. They were
Very cool.
100% channel, and I was just working every single day with these partners. And over time, I realized that they had the same exact problem that I did, which is I have to get off a call and then document everything that I just did and then jump onto another call. And if they're back to back, then I got to do two documentations, right after those two calls. And I got so many things going on. I'm just a person. And my business was asking me to input all of this data,
Mm.
asking me to act as a biological API, asking me to context switch, a million times throughout the day through these like systems that had 17 different fields that I had to fill out. And it was just insanity to me.
Right.
So I had this crazy idea that what if I could just speak it and
Yeah.
it went right into the system? Like, what if I
Amazing.
just could like have that Tony Stark Jarvis experience of just like, let me just say it. It goes into the system perfectly every time. So I set out to build it, man. And I wanted to build it for MSPs because I had worked so closely with them. It's really a unique community.
Right.
And they had so much to document. Every service call needed to be documented, not just so the business could make good decisions,
Yeah.
but for compliance reasons. Like there was just so much that was weighing on proper documentation. So
Right.
the felt all this pressure. And I was feeling the same thing as a salesperson. And so
Mm.
I wanted to solve this problem for myself and also for all these awesome MSPs that I was working with every day. So I set
Right.
out to build Cyft, man.
That's amazing. So for people that don't like know what, let's just go to brass tacks here. Like MSPs, managed service providers, it's kind of the fundamental knowledge that we need to know before we get into Cyft. Like, what are some of the problems that they're having, and also like just what are they? What does their day to day look like?
hmm Well, at the highest level, Peyton, you really got to think about the MSP owner and why they start their business and what
Mm.
their end goal is. And not a lot of people talk about this because when you start a business on day one, you don't want to talk about how you're going to sell your business.
Right.
But
Yeah.
everybody gets into it because they're hoping to have a meaningful outcome for themselves, for their families, for their
Right.
employees. And so let's begin with the end in mind, right? If you want to sell your MSP and get a solid multiple for all the work that you've put in over all those years, you need to have really, really great documentation.
Mhm.
So, how do you get that? Well, right now, you're asking your technicians, who are these guys that are boots on the ground, helping customers every day, you're asking them to document every single thing that
Mm.
they did, every single time, every conversation, every day, every technician, every ticket, and do it perfectly. Because if you
It's
don't,
crazy.
I don't have visibility and measurability in my business,
Okay.
and I can't make really great business decisions, which then reduces the likelihood that I have
Mm.
this meaningful outcome for myself, for all my employees, for my family. And so, beginning with the end in mind, I mean, it's really about creating clean data so that the
Mm.
business owners who set out to do this really incredible thing for themselves and their community, making that possible, making that easier, and boiling it down to the technician level. Their day to day is I get a ticket in for a customer that has a problem.
Mhm.
I'm going to then pick up the phone, call that customer and see if I can help. If I can help, I'm going to do that right then and there. If I can't, then I'm going to escalate it to someone else on my team who maybe has more experience with that. And then they're going to help the customer. There's a few things that are super important with that is like client communication, right? Like letting them know right away, hey, I'm working on this thing, and not saying, hey, I'm working on this thing and here's all the technical mumbo jumbo that you don't need to know. You just need to let them know that you're working on it. So the technicians are just like kind of churning through all these different problems, all these different tickets with the end goal of just unblocking their client and giving their client a really great experience. And Cyft helps with that.
Right. And you're talking about like and that's now I'm starting to understand like more of the context switching, right? So in terms of that, the technician's primary job, what I'm hearing from you is their primary job is to really have a human connection, because that's like the brand of the business and MSP, like how those 5-star reviews are happening. But then on the other end, they're having to switch. Okay, I just helped that person, and now I have to go and do all this minutia of data entry on that. Can you talk to me a little bit about what a technician has to implement and input for that to, like, I guess, have a very direct impact on a business?
Well, there's a few different things that you just have to have, which is an internal node. So I might not be the only technician that's working on this. Someone else might pick this up in the future. And if I've solved this problem, well, I want to document that for the junior technician who's starting, 2 months from now and might pick that up and try to use that knowledge that I've created so that they can get off the X a little bit faster, right? They need to document internally so that if it escalates to a different tier, that they can help that customer solve that problem quickly. So that internal documentation serves really the business for internal communication, but on a deeper level, it actually helps the service managers defend the technicians. So when a customer calls and says, hey, why did you bill me 45 minutes for this thing? If the ticket just says fixed it, there's no way that you can defend that technician, right? But if it says, hey, I did this, I did this, I logged in here, I did this, and then here's how I resolved it. Now as a service manager, I can have your back. Right. And so those internal notes are super important for a ton of different reasons. But at the root, we need to document all the wonderful work that these technicians are doing so that they get credit for it, so that we can have their back if an issue arises. So there's a ton of reasons why internal documentation is important. Then you have client communication. So right now, I think it's a lost art in terms of communicating with clients externally. Really, that should be about value justification. When you're billing for time and you're not providing like a SaaS product or something like that, you have to continuously justify your value. Now, it shouldn't be that way, right? You know you're valuable and customers should know that too, but they've got short-term goldfish memories, and we want to let them know every time we solve something, we should let them know, hey, here was your problem. Here's how I solved it, and I'm excited to solve your next one. Reach out. And so every technician, every time should be justifying your value to the end client. So that customer communication is super important. And then you have resolution notes, which is how did I solve this problem? What was the root cause? Did I put any sort of prevention in place, right? Like how did this situation change permanently? That's really about an audit trail. So if you go back and you want to know what actually happened and what was fixed, what was changed, you want to have that resolution note, which is a little bit more technical and a little bit about what happened, what changed, and then what the current state is. So there's a ton of documentation that's super important. You got to have it. And so those are 3 of the big ones for sure. And then time entries is the last one. That's how MSPs bill their clients is I spent this amount of time and I did this thing. So right now, time entries, if they're not really well done, clients look at that and they feel like I don't really know what I'm paying for. Right. But a really great time entry is going to reinforce your value to that client. They know exactly what they paid for and they're happy to pay for it because it shows that you solved their problem. And so tons of documentation, all these different fields, man, and techs have to do it every time.
Well, that's really cool though, too, because like now I'm starting to see a clearer picture as well, too, from like a defensibility standpoint, because the time entry happens and then the company then is like, oh, why am I getting billed for this? You need good documentation from the techs, but you just said sometimes the text just said, fix this. And now the service provider can't really be like, hey, defending that technician. It was like, well, we did do 45 minutes of work. Well, okay, yeah. Then they're starting to have like confrontation on that. And you don't ever want that. To your point, you want to be proactive. in terms of following up their client. Like, I am delivering you value every single time, and here's the documentation that shows that value in real time. Very, very
Mhm.
cool, man. Well, okay, cool. So have all this great, amazing knowledge about MSPs. You've been working in it for years now. So why did you get into Cyft, and why did you decide to start it?
Mm. Just solving my own documentation problem, man.
Yeah.
I was in the same boat where I had to log into Salesforce after every single demo I did,
Mm,
and I had to put in, what is the competitor, right? What are the business drivers? Who are the economic buyers, right? I had to set the field, the status. There's so many different variables that I had to account for and put into the system so that my leadership had visibility across our
gotcha.
entire sales team. And MSPs are structured in the exact same way, but it's called a service desk. And
Mm,
so their service managers need visibility into what's going on across their entire service desk. So technicians are asked to fill out all of these fields, type in all of these notes, board type, subtype item, do it correctly every time, or else you get a little slap on the wrist. And so I was really solving my own problem because I hated documentation.
yeah.
And it turned into something really cool that I'm able to provide for MSPs who I've worked with for a long time and that just love the community. So I'm
Very
pretty
cool.
honored to be able to help them solve that problem.
Yeah, honestly, that's an amazing, like, sees the origin there in terms of that. So, like, what does Cyft actually do for you? Like, at least what did it help solve you on an individual level, and now on an MSP level?
So right now, a technician gets off of a live service call. They just helped a customer, right? The customer was upset. They had this big problem. They
Mm,
didn't understand it, but the technician did. They were able to help that customer resolve it. That's amazing. That's what they're there for. That's
right.
their job. But right now, today, if they don't have Cyft, they have to open up ConnectWise Manage, which is an extremely powerful platform. It's also been around for a really long time.
Right.
And so they have to open it up and click through all these different fields, type all these notes out, all that sort of stuff. With Cyft, Cyft is sitting live on that service interaction. So instead of the technician having to do things right after the call and remember what they did and type it all themselves, Cyft was just listening to the call. And Cyft is
Cool.
like, hey, I already took all your stuff for you. I took all your notes. I
That
did
is awesome.
post-incident classification. I did all the pattern matching that's required. I've generated everything for you. Here it is. And if it looks good, they approve it in 45 seconds as opposed to
Cool.
maybe like 12, 13 minutes.
That's cool. So that time usually for data entry takes like 12 to 13 minutes. Like, that's okay. That's a crazy amount of time. And so you say, like, Cyft pretty much is live recording, transcribing everything, and then putting it into a method in which that talks with ConnectWise. Am I getting that correct?
Yeah, exactly.
Cool.
And the 12, 13 minutes, that's if the technicians were doing this level of documentation every time. Some
True.
technicians, it takes 30 seconds. When you just type, hey, man, I fixed the issue, like that only takes you 30 seconds. So,
Right.
I mean, that happens too. And we want to avoid that as well.
Yeah, and I've heard you speak about this before too. It's like the time in which that technician, they're not really incentivized for proper documentation, even though the business is incentivized because good documentation then, like, to your point, has a good exit or whatever. But in terms of that, the technician's not incentivized by that because it's on to the next ticket, and that's probably what they get paid for. Is that correct?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, if you're a technician and you're doing really, really thorough documentation, it's going to take you 15, 20 minutes,
Mm,
which means that's less ticket throughput per technician on your service desk. So they're
gotcha.
incentivized to actually document quickly so that they can get on to the next ticket. They have a billable utilization rate. So you really want your techs to be billing about 6 hours a day.
Okay.
And if they're doing a ton of documentation, it's really hard to hit that. And so the
Gotcha.
incentives are just like competing with each other. Where you're like, hey, move really quickly and be efficient with your time, but also do this really inefficient process. And I'm going to hold you accountable to both. I mean, it's
Okay.
kind of it's kind of ridiculous, but that's the reality.
Gotcha. I don't know if you can. It's like public math, so it's very difficult. But, like, can you give me the math on that? So, like, what is a 10% utilization gap, like, actually cost in MSP from, like, on a broader scale, if you know that data or not?
Depend on per MSP,
Right. Okay.
right? So that's one that I'd have to pull in a specific partner and give you a more specific answer
Gotcha.
per MSP per service desk.
Right.
But
Because like
pretty
each of them
broadly
have a
across the
different
board.
types of cost for their
Exactly.
technicians as well too. Okay. I gotcha.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. So, and that's what you're also talking about in terms of the incentives being backwards. So the tech who documents well actually looks worse on a dashboard than that. That's just like kind of mind boggling to me, to be honest. Is like both of the value in which that the MSP has for good proper documentation is possible multiple X's on an exit versus the technician is actually incentivized to be like, I need to be able to hit my quota because, not being available is also a bad thing. So Cyft fixes that issue without also compromising. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yeah. You can think about it like this, Peyton. Right now, the path of least resistance for a technician is to work an issue and then think, okay, I know I need to document this, but I'm going to do it later because I have to
Gotcha.
jump on this next fire. That's their reality right now. That's their path of least resistance. And so what Cyft has done is made the path of least resistance the same as the path of absolute accuracy for the MSP.
Amazing.
So what does that mean? It means for the first time in history, you actually want your technicians to take the path of least resistance, which is to let Cyft listen to that call, go to the product, type in done, and let Cyft do all that documentation because that's now the path of absolute accuracy for the MSP. So we're solving the problem for the technicians and the business because the business needs that documentation. The business is also stuck in between a rock and a hard place in a way.
Right. Okay. So I'm a tech then. A call just came in. Walk me through exactly what happens with Cyft from the moment that call starts and like if I'm doing it the lazy way.
Well, I probably have a ticket that's assigned to me.
Right.
So the first thing that I'm going to do is go check that ticket. I'm going to read through it. What is the situation? Now, based on that information, I may need to go dig into IT Glue or Hoodoo, which hosts more documentation for me on that client, just to understand their world a little bit better. I might go to Google or, God forbid, something like ChatGPT, and I'm now putting in customer information to a different AI product. But it happens because I need to do a little pre-research and understand this problem a little bit better before I pick up the phone and call the client. So once I have that information, I pick up the phone, I call the client, say, hey, I'm here to help. Here's what I know about your history. Here's what I know about the problem so far. Get me up to speed. Is there anything else that I need to know before we get started? And then I'll help work through that issue. I might tell them I'll call them back, right? If it's going to take me a little bit longer. So I'm going to work through that. And then I'm going to let the client know, hey, this is all good to go. You're set. And then I have to sit down and document it over and over again in multiple different places. And I have to attach agreements. I have to check the board, the types, subtypes, items. I have to categorize the priority, make sure that it's all perfect, and then submit a time entry so that my service manager can review it and approve it.
Okay, cool. And so that time entry, and so the tech elevates it. And in terms of the business structure of that, like the tech completes a task, and then who does it get elevated to? And does Cyft help them in any situation?
Yeah, so if it's like a one-call close and a level 1 technician's able to solve the problem all the way through, they'll submit a time entry, they'll close that ticket out. Then the service manager is responsible for reviewing those time entries before it goes out to bill the client. So right now, if the time entry just says fixed it, they really have no justification for the time that they're billing their client. If it's a huge paragraph of a ton of stuff, well, now it's going to take a service manager 2 hours to go through all of those time entries and find the relevant information. With Cyft, it comes in bullet points of just signal, no noise, so that the customer is notified and they're aware and they trust the work that was done. And the service manager can just scan through those because what they're really trying to understand is, does the work match the level of time that we're billing? And the service managers are really experienced. So what we want to do is speed up their pattern matching. You do that by building muscle memory so that a time entry looks the exact same every technician, every problem, every time. So now as a service manager, I can just scan those things, use my 10 years of experience to pattern match, and then only reach out if there's something that looks off.
Gotcha. And what would would you be reaching out to, and sorry for my ignorance, is would you be reaching out to the technical tech, or would you be reaching out to the client for that before you bill them? It's like, hey, there's some discrepancy on that. On that. So I just wanted to kind of understand that job there.
Yeah, that's a good question. I'd be reaching out to the technician. Say, hey, this looks weird. What's going on? And then the tech has to remember that issue that they did on Tuesday.
Right.
That they now saw 30 more problems, and they got to be like, oh yeah, this is what I did. And I logged in here and I did all these things. And it's
Gotcha.
almost impossible to remember everything that you did hours later, let alone days later. So Cyft really solves that problem for the tech, the service manager, the client, and the business.
Very cool. Okay, that's awesome. So proper documentation really helps that kind of the tip of the spear in terms of the technician, making them also feel incentive that they can move on to the next ticket, but also adding it to the service manager that they can go in and actually charge clients. And so that's what you're also. I also listened to you say before that you can actually make more money with Cyft because of that reason, right? Is because the billable hours are actually accurate. And so you might be losing time because, like, I don't know if this is the same for MSPs, but for at least the content creation work and stuff that I've done before as well, too, in terms of media, it's like you bill them, but like you also, like, if you can't justify that, then like you just like, okay, I'm just going to charge them under because I don't want them to like have the whole back and forth of like what it is. It's just easier to just be like, hey, I did like 50 hours and then that's it for that. Does the same thing happen for MSPs at all?
Hmm. Yeah, it's exactly
Okay.
right. I would call it leaking revenue.
Okay.
Like there's a lot of leakage on the
Okay.
service desk, which it comes in so many different forms, and there are all these little micro moments, like an agreement wasn't attached, or we had a project that we agreed upon with a customer. Now
Mhm.
our technicians are doing all this extra work that's out of scope and not being billed.
Gotcha.
And so there's all these different ways that you can leak revenue in a service desk, and Cyft is basically going to patch those things up by just being aware of what's happening live and in the field with the technicians, in the
That's
trenches with
sick.
the technicians, so that if you're doing extra work that's out of scope, Cyft is aware and can alert your
Mm.
service manager. If you have an agreement that's not attached, Cyft will make sure it's attached. So there's all these different micro moments that we're able to help patch on the service desk.
That's amazing. So like it makes the C-suite mostly for that too to also see the bigger picture, right? So in terms of that, it's like, hey, we're actually not charging this, but this is honestly something that everybody's been charging us out of scope. Maybe we should just put it part of a package. Have you seen anything kind of like that happen with Sift?
Not particularly yet. Now, I've had some really interesting data that's surfaced from just asking their
Please
PSA
share.
in natural language.
Please
I mean, they're
share.
saying things like, hey, show me hidden revenue in my service desk.
Oh,
And
sick.
Sift is
Okay.
able to traverse 6 months of tickets and find tons and
Gotcha.
tons of different micro moments again that if you
Pattern
patch those
detection, what
things
you're kind
up,
of saying.
yeah, you're going to be
Yeah.
able to, retain that revenue. I mean, there's even things like technicians who solve a problem in 5 or 10 minutes. It's almost
Mm.
not even worth doing the documentation and billing because
Yeah.
they have to move on to the next thing. And so our philosophy is that every single technician minute should be on an invoice. Now that's
Wow.
probably impossible to do, but
Right.
that's our
Right.
North Star. That's our North
That's cool
Star.
though. And I think that resonates with okay, so first if it resonates, it's like if I'm a founder, it resonates with me because it's like, hey, I'm providing these people salaries, right? And I want to be able to make sure that every single minute is tracked for them. So that is increasive like multiples on the business, right? And then on the other side, it makes it more better from a documentation perspective of like if I do want to exit, like one of the most important things is, hey, can I pick this up and can it provide revenue ongoing instead of it just being like, oh yeah, fix it or whatever. It's like, hey, oh no, this is proper documentation. And if I have proper documentation, that means that I can have kind of like new members, like sometimes it's like churn of like if you get acquired and stuff like that, churn of people like leaving your technicians and stuff. But if you have good documentation too, you can train the next team
Mhm.
on all the stuff and all the clients' previous work. It's kind of making my mind kind of go from like a big picture wise to we kind of talked a lot about the technicians and all that stuff, but in terms of the founder level is kind of where I want to kind of move to. Anything on top of that before we move to it actually?
I think you did a pretty good summarization of
Okay.
that for sure.
Yeah, it's just very fascinating to me. Okay, so when it comes down to like we just talked about the operations tool. I want to kind of talk about the thing that you started this podcast with, which is like, okay, I'm going to zoom out, right? And we always want to be like a ideal, like I'm never going to sell this business or whatever. But a lot of people that make businesses, even myself, like if I'm making a business, I want to be acquired by a bigger tech or whatever it is to be able to be support my family and be able to live in a good way and also to be able to pour into other people. And so when it comes down to that, like let's kind of put into that perspective. If I'm a founder, if I'm the CEO of this, or even a CEO, C-suite level, talk to me about like what actually to like what how does Cyft add to like the business value for like 3 to 4 years that I'm thinking of actually selling this MSP?
I think the most important thing that we do, Peyton,
Mm-hmm.
is provide visibility and measurability of an MSP, specifically their service desk.
Gotcha.
Right now, an MSP owner, I don't know that they can truthfully give you a hard answer about the numbers on their service desk with a high degree of confidence.
Hmm.
Like, that creates a lot of anxiety, especially when you're going to go
Okay.
sell your business. You don't
Ah.
know if the data is accurate, if the time entry that your technician put in 6 months ago is actually the correct amount, right? You don't know if your technician utilization is reflected in your PSA that matches your actual reality, right? So there's
Hmm.
a distrust of your own data in the business that you're actually building. So I think
Gotcha.
it's really this deeper issue of, do I trust the data in my service desk? Am I confident in those things? Can I make decisions based on that?
Mm-hmm.
Now, when you're going to go sell, I mean, imagine having something like Cyft for 3 years, 4 years.
Wow.
You could
Yeah.
be 100% certain, hey, I've got the best data. Go
Right.
ahead, open the hood, look at whatever you want, because I
That's
know it's
amazing.
there and I know it's great. That's what I want to bring for the MSP owners, is just a trust, a
Right.
certain level of trust in their data for the first time that I just don't think they have right now.
And that's such a psychological shift too. Like I've been in pitches before, right? And you always and you've also been in sales before, and we've also sold. We're both married, so we at least sold our sold our wives to be able to marry us. And so on that side of things though too, it's amazing to have a psychological thing that you can back it up, right? Like going into like a pitch for, at least for VCs or for a sale, like you knowing that everything that I'm saying is actually truthful, that like if they dig into my entries, that like they could find something, it would keep me up at night, especially if like you think that it's gonna close. It's just a more of a psychological impact. So I just wanted to kind of point that out. I think it's just really cool on that. I actually do have an AI question for you in some
Sure.
ways, because everything is AI.
Mhm.
So there's one question I actually do have for you, is that you didn't actually really chase like the sexiness of like what kind of AI is doing right now. Like, why did you go for like this practical application of it, in terms of helping like managed service providers versus like any other tech that you could have built?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's a loaded one too.
Yeah, it's definitely loaded. That's why I wanted to ask it.
The shortest answer I can give you is that one of my core principles here at Cyft is intelligence in service of execution.
Mm,
I think right now, just in the world, there's so much information,
right.
right? We can create a ton with AI now. We consume way too much. And what you really want is intelligence in service of execution. And we can take intelligence out and put
Mm,
data in service of execution. I don't need just a ton of data and ton of information. I need the data that's going to help me execute on the things
mm,
that I want. That's what Cyft brings, is the exact signal that you need to be able to execute on the thing that you need to execute on, whether it's on the technician level, whether it's on the service manager level, or whether it's on the ownership level. So intelligence in service of execution is a core principle at Cyft. That's
cool.
why I built Cyft the way that I did. Because I think you can create a ton of noise with AI right now. You can get so
Right.
lost in the sauce, and it's so confident, and you think that you're like doing some amazing stuff. You pick
Right.
your head up 4 hours later, and all you have is a massive context window with
Oh yeah.
absolutely nothing changed in your real life.
Yeah.
Like, I just see
Also
it all over
eating
the place.
tokens.
Yeah, you're
Oh,
just eating tokens, man. You're not actually like executing and producing
right.
anything. With Cyft, the goal is that we surface intelligence so that your technicians can execute on the things that make your business more money.
I love that, because like there was also a podcast. It was a marketing podcast of all things, and it was actually from like Neil. I think Neil Patil. He's like a very famous marketer, and he talks about like the thing that he's getting frustrated with AI the most is that it's just so easy to get AI and chase the new cool thing, but it actually doesn't put like money in your pocket and like
Mhm.
actually help you with business outcomes. And I think with Cyft, you have a mindset of very much like that, which is like, hey, we're actually something that is going to be useful, and it's not sexy, it's not image generation, or I'm going to make a cool like vertical video using like AI. It's mostly like, hey, no, this is an actual useful tool that is from top stack to bottom stack going to be very useful and match incentives across all of it, right? So you
Mhm.
have like the technician that is going in and using it, and he can be lazy, and or she can be lazy and be able to develop this and have proper documentation, send it to the service provider desk, and just be like, okay, this is really cool to actually have a ability to be able to track things and also clientele over time. And then the C-suite gets to have proper documentation to either fill in the gaps for strategy. It's like, okay, maybe we need to add this into our package because all of this is getting billed out of scope. And yeah, it's just a really cool suite of tools. Not even the added benefit of having a defensibility of data to either sell
Mhm.
your company in the future. Okay, so last question here, James, is like, if I'm an MSP owner listening to this right now, and I've been like nodding along, what do I do next? Like, do I contact you, or do I go to Cyft? Like, what is the websites? What is how do I get in contact with you?
Well, it depends on what you're looking for. If you want to see how our product works live, you can go to Cyft.ai, hit book a demo. That goes right to me. I'll show you live. It's not a sales conversation. I pull the product up and I say, "Hey, what do you want to see? Here's what we can do. Here's what other
Love it.
people, ask about." Right? And so I love doing those and having those conversations. Now, if you're nodding along and you're saying, "Hey, I want to learn a little bit more about AI. I want to understand what James has seen in terms of patterns across these MSPs," hit me up on LinkedIn. I'll
Oh,
send you my
that's cool.
Calendly link. We can chat. We can nerd out on AI for MSPs. I've seen a ton being in the seat that I'm in. I have a really unique vantage point into what's working for MSPs, what's not working, how are they using
Very
it,
cool.
what is the value add. So if you want to nerd out, hit me up on LinkedIn. If you want to check out the product, go to Cyft.ai.
Very cool. And actually, one last question. And if so, what's the one thing that I should be thinking about between now and that demo, or now and connecting with you on LinkedIn?
It's a good question. Um, Ask yourself how many hours last week your technicians worked that didn't show up on a customer invoice,
Mm.
because Cyft closes that gap.
Yeah, that makes me. I'm not even an MSP. That definitely makes me think for sure. Well, James, it was a pleasure having you on. We are at we're already 2 minutes past. It's honestly flew by. It was a pleasure. What Cyft is doing is amazing, and I can't wait to see it out there in the wild and see what it's impacting on businesses. Last thing in terms of socials, where can we find you? Like just LinkedIn?
Yeah, just LinkedIn.
Okay.
Hit me up there, James Farrell. I
All
respond
right.
to everybody.
Let's go. All right. Well, James,
Cool.
nice meeting you.
Thanks, Peyton.